So it's one thing to work these trade show floors. It's quite another to be behind the scenes, making sure everything runs smoothly. I'm joined now with Gary Taylor, who actually has done both. 20 years experience on the trade show floor as a presenter, and now he's behind the scenes. So Gary, here with Live Marketing at Exhibitor Live, tell me, you are also an Expo Stars partner. Live
That's
Marketing.
correct, yes. So at Live Marketing, we do the entire experience architecting if we can. So that means creative concept, execution, project management, media production, staffing, on-site execution, the whole ball of wax. So as much as my job is to think of these cool experiences, figure out how to produce them, and then execute them on site. But the key thing for us and where you guys come in is no matter how cool of a technology experience that you make, unless you have someone to say, would you like to try it, your experience will fall flat. So having that engager on site, making sure people are coming into your space, but also they understand how to use the technology and are able to feel comfortable with it so they can really get the most out of your time in your booth.
Yeah, exactly. So you are Director of Technology and the Executive Media Producer.
Yes.
So how does technology, that's a lot.
That's a big title.
How does technology help what your company does by bringing the staff? You know, I want to talk about how technology actually impacts everything else that you guys are doing.
Well, largely, I mean, technology, as in all industries, can fuel productivity, can create a richer experience, can tell your story in a unique way that you might not have ever thought of telling it in that particular way. It largely also comes from client demand. Clients are always looking for the coolest way to tell their story. They want to seem fresh. They want to seem technologically advanced. And so to do that, you need to create products. You need to create a booth presence that's going to enable them to appear that way to their attendees. That's how they want to engage with their attendees. So for us, it's about what is your physical space? What is your brand personality? How do you want to tell your story? What is the message you want to convey? Bringing all that together, and what technology then will help tell your story in that way. And so our job is to know all about all the technologies that are out there and then match that technology to all those other things that you're trying to achieve in the booth. So it's a little complicated.
Yeah, it sounds complicated. And I know you guys work with a lot of different companies in various industries, from the Wizard of Oz to a unicorn on the trade show floor. You guys have done a lot.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you all have done that is just out of this world that you just thought was the craziest, funniest, wildest thing you've seen?
We tend to, in the technology world, do things where the impact is done through the technology. So while we certainly have done large scale whiz-bang shows that have, Broadway level of theatricality and staging and dancers and masterfully created big videos, most of the cool, really neat experiences are done through that technology engagement moment. So, when you can, use mixed reality, for example. So we've done things for Philips where we put a HoloLens on and they walk around an oval-shaped, structure that is moving and has icons that pop up that when they look at them launches other content which they can then interact with and choose multiple choice answer multiple choice questions, and it becomes engaging on many, many levels. So then we leave the attendee with wow, that was interesting. You were able to get information from them in a non-intrusive way. You were able to share your story in this cool way that kept them engaged. So that's kind of what we're really looking for, that kind of aha moment from the attendee. And it's kind of in pretty much in small and big ways in everything we do.
That is beautiful. Do you feel like, regardless of where you are, do you feel like the staffing element changes? For example, when you're in Spain, do you feel like staffing is different than staffing for something in Los Angeles?
At its heart, no. The basic process of an engager who is well versed on what's happening in the booth, what the specific request of them might be, to make sure that they are, whether it's bringing people in, whether it's educating them on how to do the experience, whether it's getting them to be connected with someone else, a staffer, with the company, whatever it is we want them to do, that to me doesn't change much from location. But obviously, when you're over, outside of the US, cultures are different, styles are definitely a different part of it. How we approach folks here, might be a little bit different than how we might approach them in Europe. While Europe is more laid back in many ways, I also find Europe is in some ways easier because I don't think they have had the extreme amount of like technology and experience-based stuff at the shows there. Certainly if you went to like a Mobile World Congress or a big show like there, that's tech crazy. But a lot of the shows we go to, it seems like they haven't actually had a lot of as much time spent with these kinds of experiences in the booth. So they're more receptive. They're a little bit more open to it, a little more willing to try, less of a hard sell involved. So I think that just kind of naturally works with how your engagers might approach attendees when they're in Europe as opposed to here.
And I've also noticed that when I'm in Europe, the booth attendees that are on the outside of the booth, they tend to be less aggressive than when I'm in the States.
Right.
Do you find that as well?
Yeah, I think in general, I think the whole culture is much more, just in general, laid back. It's less of a hard sell, if you will. It's more, and again, I think that there's shades of that. Having said that, if you plot me down in the middle of Excel in London or here in the Mandalay in Vegas, I don't know that the core experience is that dramatically different. So it's again, there's value in being able to read your audience, know how to approach. It's very subtle, so it's to the casual observer probably not super obvious, but obviously that's where knowing who the attendee is. Is it a teacher who's willing to learn, or a nurse who loves games, or is it a doctor who you got to approach carefully? Is it an IT guy who's heard it all before and maybe a little more jaded? So every attendee is different. For you guys, it's the ability to understand who that attendee, what that personality of that attendee is, and obviously approaching them accordingly.
You talked about the value of having people approaching attendees. What advice would you give to an exhibitor or a potential exhibitor of any company in any industry that may be considering using brand ambassadors or event specialists or someone that would be at an event approaching their potential customers? Do you have any advice that you could give to these potential exhibitors?
Yeah, I would tell them to focus on the personality of the people you're trying to hire. I mean, I know looks are important, of course. Everybody focuses. Let's not, deny that that's part of it. But I think for us, we kind of really look at like, who are the people that have the kind of personality that are willing to go out and open themselves up to a lot of rejection. It's tough. It's a hard gig. It's hard to get that kind of like, you're going to ask 5 people and get 1 to say yes, so can you stay on the front lines all day like that and do it with a smile on your face, keep engaged, keep cheerful while you're doing it. That the intelligence to be able to understand what's really happening in the booth and be able to explain that to an attendee and get them connected to that in a meaningful way, and to make sure you're following through, to make sure that once you've started them on the journey, make sure that they continue on the path that the client wants them to take. So there's a lot that goes into that it's not easy.
That's great advice. Are you guys listening? That is great advice. What about mistakes? I want to hear some big mistakes that you've seen exhibitors make, because you've been in this industry a long time.
So specifically with engagers,
I'm sure you've seen some really bad executions, and I'm sure you've seen some great executions, but I want to hear about like the biggest mistakes you see with executions.
Well, not to beat up on the beautiful people of the world, but sometimes, I know it's hard because you're here, sometimes there are very, very beautiful men and women in the booth that the client thinks, oh my gosh, they're gorgeous. And sometimes they don't have the personality that matches. Sometimes they do. I don't want to be biased, because we hire a lot of really attractive people who are amazing, but look beyond the headshot is, I guess, the tip. look beyond the, go dig a little deeper and be willing to embrace the diversity of what the world is like. This whole trade show floor is filled with all sorts of different types of people. Don't be afraid to have your crowd gatherers, your engagers, represent your audience so that they can feel approachable by that. So don't focus so much only on the looks. Of course, you want them to, they need to be professional, and look well. I would also say everybody wants crowds, everybody wants traffic in their booth, of course. And we need you guys to work your magic to get people in. Knowing how to do that well and not be aggressive when you do it is also a trick. So the other big mistake is over-aggressive. Happened to me 30 minutes ago.
Really?
Got, hey, blah, 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 blah. You got a cute little line. I didn't just ignore him. I politely said, no thanks, we're kind of in a hurry. Kept barking at me as I walked down the aisle. So
Really?
I wasn't even not interested in his product, but I will not go back because the guy barked at me. So don't be too aggressive either. Know when to make the offer, maybe take it another level, you sure, but when you're getting the energy of, the non-energy,
Right.
read it, take
Yeah.
it, embrace it. Shockingly, still happens.
That is great advice.
Yeah.
Hope everyone is listening out there. Tell me why Expo Stars is such a great partner. Why does live marketing love working with Expo Stars?
Basically the type of people that you can find to do all the things I just described. So being able to find folks that easy to work with. A lot of it's just the very basic stuff. Be on time, be early, have the wardrobe that you were requested to do, look professional, clean, and come with a great attitude and be willing to give it your all and try hard. It's not, in that sense, it's not, you don't have to overthink it. It's pretty, so for us, knowing that we have a partner who can rely on people who have all that they'll show up so we don't have to worry about it. So it's not, 5 minutes after the show or 5 minutes before we get a call. Parking's really hard. Yeah, it's a trade show. Parking's going to be tough. Whatever needs to be done so that they're ready, so we don't have to worry about it. Our whole idea of partnering with somebody is so that type of stress of getting your staff there with all those things I just said is taken care of, and we don't have to worry about it. That's a big weight off our shoulders.